Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to share with you a story about betrayal buried for over a decade, the quiet collapse of trust in a marriage, and the painful questions that resurface when old wounds are reopened. Let's dive right into it. If you had asked me last month, I would have told you I was living the dream: a beautiful wife, 2 amazing kids, a stable job, a warm home filled with laughter, lazy Sunday breakfasts, and those quiet glances across the dinner table that still made my chest tighten. Jessica and I had been married for over a decade, together for even longer, and I'd have put my life savings on the belief that we had one of the strongest marriages I knew. But now I'm sitting in my car outside a grocery store, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, wondering if I ever really knew the woman I've loved all these years. It all started with someone else's drama. Our friends, Martin and Alyssa, had been the topic of conversation in our little suburban circle for a few weeks. Apparently, Alyssa had cheated on Martin, and not just a drunken mistake kind of cheating. No, it was a full-on, calculated, emotionally loaded affair. When the news broke, it spread like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion. People took sides. And so did Jessica and I. I remember the conversation so clearly. We were on the couch, a glass of red wine in each of our hands, and she said, can you blame her? I looked at her, startled. What do you mean? She's been telling me for months. Martin never touches her anymore. No affection, no compliments, nothing romantic in years. She was basically invisible in her own marriage. It was just a matter of time before someone came along and reminded her that she exists. I frowned. That doesn't excuse cheating. She shrugged. I'm not saying it does, but sometimes things aren't so black and white. That was the beginning. A weird, uncomfortable crack in what had always felt like solid ground. We had a few more conversations like that. Me defending Martin. Her defending Alyssa. Neither of us angry. Just divided. And then, one night, after a long discussion that stretched past midnight, she looked at me with this strange expression, like she'd been holding her breath for years. There is something I need to tell you. That sentence alone was enough to make my skin crawl. My heart pounded. And suddenly, I wasn't just talking about someone else's marriage. I was standing on the edge of something that would change mine. This was a long time ago. She started. Before we got married. When we were dating. But we were exclusive already. I nodded slowly, the pressure in my chest growing. I slept with Mark. Mark? Her ex-boyfriend. The guy she swore was just an old friend. The one I never felt threatened by because she'd always laughed off the idea that there had been anything real there. The guy who still sent her Christmas memes and dog videos. The one she bumped into for coffee a few times a year. Casually. You mean, before we were together? No, she whispered. While we were together, early on, it was just once. I think time stopped. I remember blinking at her, confused, waiting for her to laugh or say she was joking. But her eyes were wet, and she wasn't smiling. You cheated on me, I said, not quite a question. More like I was trying to help myself understand. She nodded. Yes, it was a stupid, messy mistake. I regretted it instantly, but I never told you because we were getting serious, and I didn't want to ruin it. And then time just passed. We got engaged, married, had kids. It felt too late. I don't remember what I said after that. I think I stood up, walked out of the room, came back in, asked the same question twice. It wasn't even about the physical act. Yes, it hurt, thinking of her with someone else while she was with me, but what broke something deep inside me was the lie. 13 years. 13 years of believing we'd started our relationship on a foundation of trust. And all that time, she'd carried this truth alone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I watched her breathe in the dark, her back turned to me, and wondered what else I didn't know, what else she'd buried. I didn't bring it up the next morning. I couldn't. The words got stuck somewhere between my throat and my heart. We went through the motions, getting the kids ready for school, packing lunches, saying goodbye with a kiss that barely grazed my cheek. I felt like a ghost, walking through my own life. At work, I sat through meetings but didn't hear a word. I kept replaying that night in my head, over and over, like a tape stuck in a loop. The way she said it, the way she looked down at her hands, The way she said just once, like that made it better. And worst of all, the name. Mark. I started remembering every single time she mentioned him over the years. All the casual references. The way she said they'd run into each other. That time, he came to her dad's funeral and hugged her longer than I thought necessary. How she'd always insist they were just friends now. I'd never questioned it. Never really looked deeper. Why would I? I trusted her. But now I questioned everything. That night, I asked her about him. Are you still in touch with Mark? She paused before answering. We text sometimes. What does that mean? She shrugged. He sends memes. Silly stuff. We're not close. Does he know you told me? No. That answer made something in me snap. Why not? Because it doesn't matter anymore. It was so long ago. I only told you because I wanted to be honest. Finally, I didn't do this to hurt you. Yeah, I said, laughing bitterly. It's not about hurting me. It's about your guilt. She flinched at that. And for a second, I hated myself for saying it. But I was angry. I didn't know what else to do with the fire inside me. She tried to explain, told me how it happened, said it was early in our relationship, that we hadn't defined things yet, that she thought I was still dating other people, that it was a moment of weakness after a bad fight we had, something I barely even remembered. But we were exclusive, I said. I know. That's why I'm telling you now. I wanted to ask her everything. Did she ever think about him? Did she compare us? Did she regret marrying me? But I couldn't bring myself to say it. I wasn't ready to hear the answers. Instead, I went for a walk, a long one, just aimlessly wandering through the neighborhood, past the houses where dogs barked and kids played and couples laughed on their porches. Everyone else seemed so unbothered, normal, and I was out here unraveling. When I finally came home, Jessica was sitting at the dining table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea she hadn't touched. I'm sorry, she said, before I even sat down. I know you're probably thinking all kinds of things, but I love you. I've always loved you. That was a mistake I made before I realized what we really had. I nodded, but I didn't respond. I've never cheated since. I swear to you, that's when the real poison started creeping in, the what-ifs. What if that wasn't true? What if there were more secrets? What if this wasn't the only lie? Because if she could look me in the eye for 13 years and pretend it never happened, what else could she hide? I never suspected you, I said, my voice quiet. Not once, even when you'd meet up with him, I never questioned it. That's how much I trusted you. I know, she whispered, and that's what makes this so hard. She reached for my hand, but I didn't move. I couldn't. And then she said something that twisted the knife even deeper. I didn't want to tell you, but with everything happening with Alyssa and watching how Martin reacted, I realized I couldn't keep living with this weight on my chest. I kept thinking, what if I died and you never knew? Would you think our entire relationship was built on a lie? And that right there, it was the crux of it all. Was our marriage a lie? I didn't know anymore, and that was the scariest part. The next few days passed in a fog. We went through the routines, made dinner, helped the kids with homework, watched TV together like always, but everything felt off, like someone had taken our life and turned down the volume, dimmed the light just slightly. I tried to act normal, but I kept catching myself watching her, not looking, watching, studying, noticing the way she looked at her phone, the way she smiled at texts, the way she sometimes stared off into nothing with a half-smile I never noticed before. Was she thinking about him? Was she remembering? One night, after putting the kids to bed, I finally broke. Do you still have feelings for him? She blinked, caught off guard. What? Mark? Do you still have feelings for him? No, she said quickly. Of course not. But the speed of her answer felt rehearsed, like she'd said it in her head 100 times before I ever asked. He's still in your life. He never really left. Did he? She shook her head. Michael, he's not in my life like that. He's just someone I used to know, someone I used to care about. Yes, but that was another life. Then why stay friends? Because it's not a big deal to me. He's not a threat. I thought keeping a cordial connection wasn't harmful. I didn't think I needed to cut him out of my life to prove something. I stood up. My heart was racing. You slept with him while we were together. That's not nothing. That's not someone you get to keep around for casual memes and nostalgic texts." She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. "I trusted you," I said, my voice cracking. "I gave you everything. I defended you when my friend said it was weird that you still talked to your ex. I told them you were different, that we were solid." She started crying, and for a second, I felt like the villain, like I was the one hurting her. But then I reminded myself I wasn't the one who betrayed us. I wasn't the one who kept a secret for over a decade. "You act like this is something I'm proud of," she said through tears. "Do you think I haven't beaten myself up about it 1,000 times? I hate what I did, but I can't change it." "No," I said. "But you had 13 years to tell me. 13 years of chances. Why now?" She looked at me, and for once, she didn't have an answer, and that silence told me more than words ever could. Later that night, I sat on the edge of our bed while she lay curled under the blanket, her back to me. I scrolled through old photos, birthdays, vacations, anniversaries, her smile, my arms around her, the kids in between us, and I felt like I was looking at someone else's life, because suddenly, all those moments had a shadow, a whisper that said, "You didn't know everything." I started thinking back, the time she went to visit her mom alone and stayed an extra day, the conference trip she took for work where Mark just happened to be living in the same city, the lunch date she said she had with an old friend. I never questioned any of it. Until now, was I being paranoid or just finally opening my eyes? I didn't know. But the doubt was worse than any truth. The worst part wasn't the cheating. It was the realization that I could never go back to the version of myself that trusted her without hesitation. That blind, warm confidence I had, the kind that let me fall asleep peacefully next to her every night. Never wondering, never doubting, it was gone. And I missed it. I missed him, the man I used to be, the man who smiled at her texts and kissed her neck in the kitchen while the pasta boiled. That man didn't live in my skin anymore. I became cold. Not angry, just distant. Jessica noticed. She asked if I wanted to talk. I said I was tired. She hugged me good night. I lay stiff in her arms. We stopped making love. I told myself it was just temporary, that I needed space, time, but the truth was, I didn't know how to touch her without feeling it. The lie, the betrayal, the ghost of a night that happened 13 years ago, but somehow felt like it had just happened yesterday. And the worst part, she gave me nothing else to be mad about. She didn't try to defend it anymore. She apologized. Again and again. She showed me her messages, proved there was nothing romantic between her and Mark. Told me she'd stop talking to him if that's what I needed. She didn't argue. She didn't shut down. She just looked sad. And that broke me even more. Because I knew she meant it. I knew she loved me. I knew she had been a good wife, a great mother, a faithful partner for 13 years. And still, that single night lived rent-free in my head. One afternoon, I picked up our son from school, and on the drive home, he asked, "Dad, why are you and Mom being weird lately?" I nearly pulled the car over. I hadn't realized how obvious it was. I told him we were just busy, stressed with work. He nodded, satisfied with the answer, and I hated myself for lying. That night, after the kids were asleep, I walked into the living room, where Jessica sat cross-legged on the couch. Reading, I stood there for a moment, just watching her, the way her lips moved slightly as she read, the crease between her brows, the way she absent-mindedly twirled her hair the way she always had since college. She looked up and smiled. Hey, it was that smile. That stupid, beautiful, familiar smile. And something inside me cracked. "I don't know how to move past this," I whispered. Her face fell. She closed the book and set it aside. "I know I don't want to lose you," I said, "but I don't know how to be with you without feeling like I'm pretending." Tears welled in her eyes. "Then don't pretend. Just be angry, hurt, whatever you need to be, but don't leave me." I walked over and sat beside her. "I don't even know if I'm mad at you anymore," I said. "I think I'm mad at myself, for believing we were untouchable, for thinking love makes people invincible." She reached for my hand. I didn't pull away this time. "I wish I could erase it," she said softly. "Not just for you, for me, too. I wish I could go back and shake the stupid, selfish version of myself and say, 'You don't know it yet, but you're about to hurt the best thing you'll ever have.'" Oh, I looked down at our hands. But you did, and I don't know how to forget it. You don't have to forget it, she said. But maybe we learn to carry it differently. Together? Together? She said again. And I sat there, staring at the woman I'd built a life with, wondering if I had the strength to keep building, on ground that now felt cracked and uncertain. Forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's not a decision you make and move on from. It's a choice you make every single day after the pain arrives. I didn't forgive her that night, but I didn't leave either, and that, maybe, was something. Over the next few weeks, we started having conversations that were raw and difficult. We didn't try to sugarcoat. We didn't pretend everything was fine. We laid everything out on the table. All the doubts, all the regrets, all the ugly truths we'd buried. I told her how it made me feel small, like I was never enough, like I was the backup plan, the second choice. She cried, not because she wanted me to stop, but because she knew I was young and scared and stupid, she said. But I wasn't choosing between you and him. I didn't even realize what I had with you yet. I wish I had. God, I wish I had. Then why stay friends with him for so long? She looked down, ashamed. Maybe because I was trying to convince myself it really hadn't meant anything, that it was harmless. And the more time passed, the more it felt like a non-issue, until it wasn't. It made sense, in the way bad decisions always do when you zoom out far enough. But it didn't make it hurt any less. One night, I asked her the question that had been clawing at the back of my mind since the confession. If I hadn't found out, if you'd never told me, would we still be here right now? She looked me dead in the eyes. Yes, but I would still be carrying the guilt, and maybe someday it would have cracked us in a different way. That answer both comforted and unsettled me. I wanted to believe that our love was strong enough to weather this, but sometimes love isn't about strength. It's about endurance. Can you live with the scar, even if the wound is closed? That's the question that kept me up at night. The kids didn't ask again, but I could tell they felt the shift. So we started showing affection in front of them again. Small things. Holding hands while watching movies. A kiss on the forehead at breakfast. Smiling across the room. Sometimes it felt natural. Other times, it felt like we were learning each other again. And maybe that was the point. One Sunday morning, while folding laundry, Jessica looked at me and said, I deleted Mark's number. I didn't ask her to. I don't want to keep anything that might pull us backward, she said. Not when I'm trying so hard to move forward with you. I nodded. I didn't say thank you, not because I wasn't grateful, but because some gestures speak louder than words. Later that day, while walking in the park with the kids, she reached for my hand, and I let her. Her fingers were cold. Mine were warm. We didn't say anything, but in that silence, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. Time didn't heal everything. Whoever came up with that saying clearly never tried to patch a broken trust with calendar pages. But time did soften the edges. Weeks turned into months. The pain didn't vanish, but it stopped punching me in the chest every time I looked at her. I stopped seeing Mark's shadow in every room. I stopped questioning every moment of our past. Instead, I started focusing on the present. Our daughter lost her first tooth. Our son made the soccer team. We went out for dinner on a random Wednesday just because the kids had sleepovers and the house was quiet. And in those little moments, I saw us again. Not the U.S. we used to be. Not the naive, untouchable version I used to cling to. But a new version, wiser, bruised, still standing. We went to couples therapy. At first, I was skeptical. I didn't want to talk about the details in front of a stranger. But our therapist didn't push us to relive the moment. She helped us understand the layers beneath it. The insecurities, the unspoken fears, the pressure to be perfect, to never show the cracks. Jessica cried in almost every session. I didn't, but I listened. And slowly, I started speaking, too. There was one session where I told her, in front of the therapist, I don't know if I'll ever fully get over it, but I don't want to live without you. And she reached out, grabbed my hand, and whispered, I'll wait, as long as it takes. That moment broke something in me, not in a bad way. It broke the wall I had built to protect myself from her. And once it cracked, the love started rushing back in. Not blind love, not naive love, but real love flawed, battered, honest. One evening, about 7 months after that night on the couch, we were lying in bed in comfortable silence, her head resting on my chest. And she said, "I'm scared you'll never see me the same." I looked at her, brushed her hair behind her ear, and replied, "I don't, but that's not a bad thing." She frowned. "It's not." "No, because I see all of you now, not just the perfect parts, and I still choose you." She didn't cry. She just nodded. And for once, I think we both understood something neither of us could put into words. We weren't trying to go back anymore. We were moving forward. Together, scars and all. Thanks for tuning in to Reddit Stories. New tales drop daily drama, love, or ghostly glories. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss the next story we tell. Got thoughts to share? Drop them below. We read them all, just so you know.